Mom, we love you, and I wish you could see how many people here are. Yeah, here to share their love for you. Um, so, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Bob Fisher Jr., um, and I carry that name with tremendous pride. So, we're here to celebrate the life of my dad. But before we do, a little housekeeping. The restrooms are in the back, and also the way we're going to break up this program is I'm going to do a little welcome, and then Father Yusuf's going to give us a benediction, and then some of the many people who love my dad are going to share some memories and thoughts, and then at the end we're going to come back and we're going to do a song because my dad liked to sing. So mentally, get your voices warmed up, and then we're going to have some lunch, and then whoever wants to get up and share some things about my dad, um, that would be great, and that would be the opportunity. And maybe we probably have to keep it a little on the shorter side because there's so many people here, and um, it's pretty credible. Also, as I said, this is being filmed and broadcast live on YouTube, I believe on my brother's barbecue channel. Um, it it will also be archived there. So if you follow the QR code or on the invitation or go to Cooking in Mike's Backyard, you can share this with those who couldn't make it. And you can also learn to properly smoke a brisket, which is good. Um, and as always, if you enjoy Mike's content, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I really think I think you should do one of some of Dad's favorite recipes. Um, but among my dad's many enthusiasms, I don't know if you all know, but he loved the weather. If he wasn't watching football or listening to the Dodgers, he had the Weather Channel on. I mean, I'm telling you, everything about the weather, he loved it. Regional weather patterns, he was crazy for him. I think we're coming up on monsoon season in Arizona, or I don't really know, but for sure it's something, and he knew what it was. But he also just loved like the regular weather. Before there were apps for this, you could you could call him up, and he would he could tell you whether it was going to be sunny on Saturday or it was going to rain on Sunday. Um, so on this day, March 25th, the day of my dad's memorial, let it be noted that it is 64 degrees in Reseda, California, with sunny skies, a light wind coming in from the north, and several hundred people gathered to honor my dad, and so appreciative. If he were here, he'd be so happy to see you all. I mean, he'd want the circumstances to be different, believe me. Um, but I mean, that was that thing about my dad. I mean, I know you all know what I'm talking about. Like, he was the king of the greeting, right? He was so happy to always see everybody, and it just when you walk through the door, he could just make you feel like so special and so loved. And anyway, I don't have that gift to the extent that he did, but on behalf of my family, I want to welcome you all here. It means so much that you're here and that my dad was appreciated by so many people. And I also want to point out all of the members of my dad's family who came out to be here with us. His sister, my Aunt Marjorie, and we're gonna do a little slideshow, and you'll see some pictures of them when they were kids. Like, they look like the little rascals. It's fantastic. And my cousin Ann, and my cousin Paul, and Ann's kids, Julian and Samuel, and also my cousin Kathy, you were my dad's goddaughter, right? Yeah. And then my cousin Jimmy, and my cousin Beth, and my brother, cousin-in-law, I guess, Rocco, and also um, our dear family friends, the Olsons, from when we lived in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and they're so dear that they're like those friends that call your dad uncle, and that is Eric and Stacy Olson, and Stacy, I think, is also another one of my dad's goddaughters, and then Stacy's daughter Charlotte. Um, and we also want to acknowledge, you know, um, my dad's brother Jim, who I feel is with us in spirit, and my uncle Paul, also, and my dad's parents, Jim and Gladys Fisher. And I also mentioned my cousin Jim Fisher. There was a 100-year period where half of my family was named Jim Fisher. um, And then, so we also want to welcome my dad and mom's many, many friends that they knew from AA and Al Anon. My dad got sober on April 30th, 1981. On that day, I think about this often, what it must have been like for him, and I can't imagine he had any idea just how many amazing friendships he was going to make in this program, and how full his life was going to be, and the purpose he was going to get from it, and the fellowship, and the service, and the joy. And I just want you to know that my family is so grateful for having you all in his life. Um, we really look at, the program, what it did for my dad. It helped us give almost 42 years of the best, the happiest, the most grateful and joyous version of my dad. And so thank you. Um, in 2001, after my dad had retired from his original career, he started a whole new career as the central office manager for the San Fernando Valley office of AA. He loved that job, you guys. He loved it, everything about it, being part of all your lives. It was such a huge part of our life and, or his life, so it became part of our life. And I'm gonna tell you a little funny story. When my dad was in the hospital, there was a period where he was sedated and intubated. And when they finally took out the tube and brought him out of sedation, the doctor asked him as he do, "Do you know your name, sir?" And he looked right at him and he said, "Bob, alcoholic." When my brothers and I got there, Dave told us that a whole bunch of people were gonna get up and they were gonna speak and say things about my dad, and they wanted one of us to get up there at the end and, say something as well. And we had no idea that we were supposed to do that, so none of us had anything prepared. I don't know if we did paper, rock, scissors, but somehow I ended up with the job. But I felt like, oh, well, that's gonna easy. It's easy to talk about my dad. I have so many stories and so many little details that made him so fantastic that as we were eating, I was composing my little set list of the things I was going to talk about, and then people got up talking, and one by one, each of my stories, each of my clever little perfect details, the little things that made my dad awesome, everyone used them. I mean, even this 30-year-old bit I had about my dad giving directions using food places, somebody had that one too. And I was like, oh my God. But when I got over my panic, um, what I really felt was really, I was really moved actually that so many people knew my dad in exactly the same way that me and my brothers and my sister and mom knew him. And we're really grateful for that. It was extraordinary. And so thank you. But you'll notice I made sure I went first this time. And my dad, you know, you all know, really enjoyed being alive. And he woke up every day excited about what was going to come. He used his 88 years very well. He lived fully with passion and enthusiasm and joy. I'm a writer, so I realized I've used joy too many times, but that was his that was his quality. What I used to say about my dad's love of food, I think is a metaphor really for how he lived. He would always say, "This is a man who left no sauce on the plate." And he was a lucky guy. I mean, all the way to the end, he was really with it and still funny and smart and hopeful. Still had a gleam in his eye and a great new story to tell you. And we wish we could have had many more years with him, but we're really grateful for what we got. And last summer, we had just had a fantastic summer. We wanted more, but we had just the greatest summer. In his backyard, we built what was supposed to be a vegetable garden and ended up being a farm, really. And but he loved it. He loved being out there picking, picking tomatoes and puttering around and trimming back the ivy and he was just really proud of it. And we had such good memories. It was an extraordinary summer sitting in the lawn chairs with him, watching the sun, go down behind those giant pine trees behind his house and eating these amazing family meals together there. And I think several of you at least ate some lunches out there with him. He was really proud of the place. But he told me a funny story that I never heard till last summer. My dad ended up being a pretty good student, I would say, but probably had some undiagnosed learning differences, and I think he struggled a bit. So his dad, my grandfather, I think he was worried about him. So he took him to this really elaborate and at the time fancy and scientific career aptitude test. And I think it was at Stevens College in New Jersey. And when they came back with the results, they told my grandfather that they had never had a result so clear, that it was obvious what this child should be. There was just no doubt in their mind that he should be a farmer. And my grandfather was apoplectic. I spent all this money, and you tell me he's going to be a farmer? My kid can't be a farmer. He has hay fever, right? Which you think was a question. And it's true, he did. He had terrible hay fever. But last summer, I want to tell you, my dad was a farmer, and he was fantastic. All right, that's it. We're going to have a good time. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Father Yusuf from St. Innocent Church. Some of you have had meetings there. Bob often came there. Um, so I've been asked to give a benediction. So I think we'll start, as a lot of us usually do, with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Among the things that we cannot change is our mortality. As the poet says, we must endure our going hence. And for those of you that have often had the joy and the privilege of saying, "Hi, Bob," in what I would consider a sacred context, you now in a sacred context say, "Bye, Bob." We might take some consolation in these words from the wisdom of Solomon. The souls of the righteous are in the hand of God, and there shall no evil thing touch them. In the sight of men, they appear to have died, but they are at peace. Or the words which the Apostle Paul came out with when people were arguing over what to eat. It's funny. This is the hard thing with that author, is that he's often talking about a controversy that is remote from many of us, and then all of a sudden something flies out, and he says, "Well, some people eat, and they eat to the Lord, and some people don't eat; they refuse to eat certain things, and if they don't eat, they don't eat to the Lord." And then he says, "And whether we live or we die, we are the Lord's." That's one of the most beautiful expressions in the scripture. Whether we live or we die, we are the Lord's. As we think about our mortality and we think about the things that we have done, and as they asked me for this, I mean, many of you have many memories, and my memory is not especially colorful. So I'll be very brief. I mean, I'd met Bob coming because the convention meets in our hall and so forth. And he came in and he was always friendly, so on and so forth. I knew his face, he knew mine. And then this young Ukrainian man, and one of the features of Eastern European culture, which I love and am very familiar with by now in my life, for obvious occupational reasons. But sometimes when they go into the disease of alcoholism, they don't mess around. Uh, um, he was developing liver problems, which many people develop in their 40s or 50s. He was getting them in his 20s. Um, his mother had already found Al-Anon, and he came to me, and he would do this thing, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, which is go from desperately seeking something to trying to scam me every 3 seconds. And I tried and tried, and he came on Saturday for confession. He came on Sunday for liturgy, or what some of you would call Mass. For those of you that use those words, I would like you to know today is the Feast of the Annunciation. So I came over right after offering the Divine Liturgy at which Bob was commemorated, or some of you would say for the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass was offered for him. Uh, so he came, and then he came to me again on Monday, and he would go from desperately seeking something from me with an earnestness that touched me to trying to scam me with an obviousness that didn't touch me or touched me in an entirely different way. So I finally, after trying to work with him for an hour, I took him over to the central office. And I witnessed Bob, and pardon me, this is a kind of informal occasion, so I'm just going to be blunt. Bob cut through his shit so fast, it was amazing. Just, and he did in 5 minutes something I'd been trying to do for a couple of hours. And it's always good for those of us that are in helping fields to know that sometimes somebody needs somebody else. And this kid needed Bob. And to be honest, I don't know if his story was happy. He had kind of alighted upon me and disappeared. And I actually saw him surprised. I heard a voice and I thought, I know that voice. And it was that young man again. And I'm sorry he was still drinking when I saw him. But we hope that he finds recovery at some point. But Bob cut through his stuff in 5 minutes, and then I took him over to Radford Hall, and I was always amused that you had to look for tequilas and then turn left. But and and I was reminded I had an experience with Alateen when I was 16 and in high school, and I was reminded of the power of the program from that experience. So, like the next Wednesday, I took off my cassock and just went to the meeting that meets in our church on Wednesdays, or the meeting that at that time met on our church on Wednesdays. 'Cause I wanted to remember more about the program, and for various reasons that aren't of concern then, I've ultimately realized that I need to go to Al Anon meetings quite regularly. Um, Not least of which because periodically, if you're trying to lead a group of people, some sort of codependence is going to come up all the time. So I like to go to places, and I'm actually greatly relieved that I don't recognize anybody from my Al Anon meeting. We have a lot of double hitters, and I was kind of worried because I like being really anonymous there, and I'm very anonymous, and I never describe myself as a priest there because one of the reasons I go is to go to a place where I'm not the priest. It's a great relief for me, but it's been a great help for me, and uh, I was so uh, impressed by what Bob did. And and here's the thing: a lot of times we have to let go, and I'm sure many or most of you know this. Whether the young man that I brought to Bob found what he needed to find is not in our control. You know, Bob had many successes and many things where he spoke the word of truth, and it didn't click. But I want to say something for all of you and for myself. You can guess that I might have some ideas about the afterlife from who I am and how I'm dressed, but I want to speak to something about the afterlife that is here for everybody. I was listening to a clinical psychologist who said, we know that people that grow up with certain forms of dysfunction are more likely to have that dysfunction. And so the kinds of abuse, addiction, so forth. Children that grow up with that are more likely to have it. But then he said, but look at this. And I think he used the word miracle. Here's the thing. He said, but the great thing is that if that was totally predeterminative, we would all be completely sunk because over time, everybody would have dysfunction. So, many of you knew Bob much better than I did. But as times go on, people will not remember him the way we do. We just know that. It's part of enduring our mortality to know that. And to know that the things that we remember, many things we remember, are passing with us in our memory. So here is something that is going to go on for a very long time, long after those of us, I mean, all of you who are looking here, you know that smile. You know that look, you can hear him cracking a joke with it and so forth. When I was reflecting on my experience at the central office and at Radford Hall and the meeting that I went to, because I had a lot of experience with the AA that week, and I was looking at it and I thought, like, here is a very distilled and simple form of spirituality with a laser focus. But a lot of the elements of it are scattered around in more complex forms and simple forms in human history. And the fact that we didn't all completely sink into addiction and dysfunction millennia ago in our human experience is because many people, many of our forebears, whose faces and facial expressions and even their names are no longer known, had a spiritual awakening. And having had a spiritual awakening, they practice those principles in all of their affairs. And the meetings invite us to reflect upon the power of those words. And I would like to invite you to reflect on the power of what's behind those words, how we are not only the inheritors of dysfunction and addiction from our forebears, but we're also the inheritors of spiritual awakening that has happened amongst human beings by the grace of God for millennia before us. And Bob, who preeminently sought to practice that in all of his affairs, this whole second career running a central AA office and going around and being involved and talking to people and trying to pass on the experience of the spiritual awakening, has passed on the fire of the spiritual awakening to many people who will in turn pass it on. And long after our voice, our facial expressions, and even our names are forgotten, the fire will continue. And so, as we who have said, "Hi, Bob," now say, "Bye, Bob," let us send him forth. And you got a priest, so you get this. Send forth, Bob. Go forth into eternal life. In the name of God the Father who created you, in the name of Jesus Christ who redeemed you, in the name of the Holy Spirit who brought you into spiritual awakening, and through you brought spiritual awakening to many others. Amen.
Hi, I'm Mike. Bob stole my story about hi, Bob. Or my name is Bob. I'm an alcoholic. In any case, before I launch into what I prepared, I'll tell you, I was outside when they were doing that, and I'm in the ICU, right, which is not exactly a happy place to be. And it comes out, and I couldn't help myself. I just burst into laughter. It was the loudest laughter the ICU has ever heard because it was just so familiar. Because he would call sometimes, and even if people knew him, he would say that. It just came out naturally to him. Um, so people, for the last couple weeks, have asked me, like earnestly and caringly how I'm doing. And on the surface, I'm okay. All right. But I'm angry. I feel cheated. But most of all, I just feel sad. And as I look around at this group of friends and family, I see sadness. And I mean, I suppose it's only fitting, but it seems like something my dad would hate, right? I mean, he'd be glad, but he would, on the surface, hate it for sure. Um, but he's gone, and I find myself at times in this wilderness of pain and sadness. And I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. These waves come. And when the waves come, there's this urge to embrace the sadness, to let it engulf you, to just give into it. Because in there, there's a childish hope that if you do, the devil will get bored and leave you alone and find some other soul to torment, and you'll get to live again. This is a struggle my father would not want any of us to bear. He had a gift in that he saw the good in all people. It's not to say he didn't see our faults or his own faults, but he saw our faults as a manifestation of humanity. And the man loved humanity. And in the end, isn't that what we all crave? Someone who sees our faults but loves us just the same? I mean, the language of love is a mystery. It's a blessing. It's a mystery. People like my father, some have managed to unravel. I hope I will someday, and I can set aside my feelings, of being cheated. But in any case, there are times. Hang on a second. Sorry. Again, he wouldn't want us to struggle with this. Sorry. I've been holding it together, but I'm having a little trouble right now. It's at times like these, I'm reminded of a poem that I learned in college. I can't remember who wrote it, and I can't remember the name of the poem. But it's about a man who comes across an abandoned village. And he says, the houses are empty, the streets are bare, and their language has been forgotten. And that last line just kills me. The notion of a language being forgotten. And my father's language was one of laughter and story, song, friendship, fellowship, and love. And as I look around and I've talked with all of you, I know that my father's language will not be forgotten. It'll resonate in the stories you tell, the songs you sing, your laughter, your friendships, and it'll be passed on for generations. And in that way, he'll live forever. So, to this earth, we commend his body. To God, we commend his soul. But to all of you, we commend his language. What he would want, what he deserves, is what I owe him. Amen.
Okay. Hello, my name's Joe, and I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, I got a great speaker. This I was really enjoying all of that. Everybody said it. And, Bob would really enjoy something like this. He'd be going around glad-handing, hugging and kissing, and just telling everybody how wonderful they were, and how good they look, and on and so forth. And you know, and Bob and I used to talk just about every morning, and there was there was a time he called me, and he says, his sponsor Dave had died. He said Dave has passed away, and him and I talked, and I said, yeah, and we talked about Dave and what a great guy he was, Dave Mitchell, and he said to me, he says, I need a sponsor. I said, yeah. And he says, will you be my sponsor? And I said, no. And he says, well, why not? And I says, because you're my sponsor. And he says, oh, well, he says, we've known each other a long time and, we can make this work. And Bob, I just talked you into it. And I says, well, okay, how's this going to work? And he says, well, you're a sponsor on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And I says, yeah. And he says, I'm the sponsor the rest of the time. And I says, how come you got 4 days? He says, because I'm your sponsor. He said, oh, I see, said the blind man. That makes it all clear. So we did. We made it work for 30 years. And a lot of phone calls, a lot of baseball talk, a lot of football, a lot of weather. I don't really care about the weather. I got Alexa here. I can just ask her. He says, no, but down. Yeah, okay. So, we talked. Bob was always there for me. He, if I needed a ride or I needed this, that. So, one day, Irene calls me. She was chairman of this convention. March, no, this in what do I know? Yeah, I can't remember my own name. But she says, I want you to read a vision for you. And I says, hey, maybe you haven't noticed, but I got this eye problem here. She, in typical fashion, she says, well, with all the time you got, you should have memorized it by now. I says, I don't think so. So I called Bob and I said, you know what that Irene wanted me to, a vision for you. And he says, so do it. He says, what? What's wrong with you guys? And he says, just go ahead and do it. I says, well, he says, I'll help you with it. So every day our book is meant to be suggestible, and on and on. And he says, I says, that's great having a blind man do a vision for you. And he says, I'll be right on the podium with you. I'll be right there. And I said, okay. So I get there in my suit and everybody's all jammed in the old timers meeting, and here comes Joe and he's there with Patrick, the Irish guy, and they're sitting on stage, and him, what's his name? Oh, so here comes Bob Darden and Don Locke. They had to sit right in the front. And I'm going, oh no. I'm trying to memorize this thing, and I know those guys are going to give me a bunch of crap, They both had about 50 years or something. So I finally, they called me up there, and I did the whole thing straight out. And Bob had that big grin on his face. Way to go, man. And there's many times where Bob was right there for me. I'll say one more thing. He took me for a job interview. I got through the mayor's office. They set me up at this job interview. And Bob says, well, I'll drive you. I said, okay. So he drove me over there. Excuse me. And here comes the chairman of the board. She sits down, and I'm sitting there waiting for my interview. Her and Bob are talking. You know, Bob's got a gift of gab there. They found out that they're both Irish, and that really went into great detail about, you know, hereditary and all that stuff. And so I'm waiting, and I'm going, "Come on, Bob, let's get this over with," you know. And you know, so she says, "Well, I'm looking for a director for my school for the blind," and you know, Bob says, "Well, I think Joe will make a great director for your school." And I'm going, "No, no, 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 Bob. What did you do that for? You know, what do I know about?" So he says, "That's great." So I says, "Bob, we're walking out of there. What the hell?" And he says, "No problem. He says, we'll figure it out." And I said, "Well, I'm glad you think so, man." So we get home, and one day Bob's driving me to work. And he says, "You know, I had to let go of one of them bus drivers and everything." And he says, "Well, what about me?" I'll, I said, "You want to drive a bus with a bunch of blind people?" And he says, "Sure." I'm telling you, Bob went through the training, and he got on this bus. They loved him. You know? They loved him. He'd sing to them every morning, you know, going along the road, and you know, like every time at Christmas, we'd go caroling with Bob, you know, and not the blind school. I jumped there, but that was one more thing that Bob was really into is Christmas caroling. At VA, he'd wear that top hat, that green top hat he had. He'd be walking in front of everybody, just bellowing out, you know, every song. We all had a songbook. I think Bob got them somewhere. And we rented a bus one year, and with that drunken bus driver, and it was at Christmas. Wasn't that great? And we drive all over town singing, you know, and at Christmas time at Bob's house, you know, sometimes we'd go down to this street. He says one time, "So who's got Joe?" And Beth, his daughter, says, "I'll take it." So we go out, we're singing away, and get to this one house. Woman comes out. I'm sure Beth won't mind me telling this story. She is. But woman comes out, and she says, "Would everybody like some cocoa?" And Beth says, "Yeah, Joe, you want some cocoa?" And I say, "Sure, why not?" I said, "You gonna have some cocoa?" He says, "I don't think so, Joe." And she pulls a bottle of beer out of her pocket. Anyhow, what a great tribute to Bob Heaven. I just want to say one more thing. A nicer, finer person could never have met Bob Fisher and his family. Just great, just wonderful. Just an honor for me to know him and be a sponsor for the end. I just failed to say, so I'm sitting down. So. Love you all.
I got the
Good morning, everyone. My name is David. I'm an alcoholic. I had to put so many things down on paper, what, I was going to share this morning. And what do you say? I mean, what do you say? Um, I know what I do want to say is if you have an empty seat next to you, can you raise your hand so that some of these people that are standing up can grab a seat? We got an empty seat over here, okay? Okay, there's another empty seat up front here. Come on down. Don't be afraid. Don't have me start calling you out by name. I think that broke the ice for me. Uh, um, First of all, I want to thank the Fisher family for allowing me to participate in Bob's memorial and celebration, and this has been a glorious day. The rain went away. The grass is green. And the tables are decorated nicely with blue and gold tablecloths. So thank you. And I kind of knew there were going to be some laughs, and I knew there were going to be some tears, but I didn't expect them to be all mine. I want to thank my wife for being supportive during my grieving of losing my sponsor. I want to thank all my friends that have been calling and texting and emailing, and my brothers and sisters in the fellowship that helped put this celebration together, both physically and financially. There are too many to list, so I'm not going to try to name everybody, but you know who you are. Now, what do I say about the man that helped me in so many ways? Be a better husband, to be a better father, a better coach, how to be a better mentor, a better speaker, a better sponsor, a better friend, a better member of our fellowship, and lastly, a better human being. By applying the principles that Father Yusuf eloquently talked about, that we learn in these steps. You know, Bob often spoke about steps 6 and 7 as the forgotten steps, where we get to work on ourselves and build character. But not everyone is willing to do the work, and so they forget about them. I'm sure everyone here has a unique story about Bob Fisher, When I was coming up, there was this show called The Naked City, and they ended their show with there's 9 million stories in the naked city, and this has been just one of them. I think it was pre Law and Order SVU, but it was similar to those lines. It would be called a series these days, and I'm sure everyone has a Bob Fisher story, and but I learned firsthand that Bob was consistent and very structured, and he'd done things in a certain way. And when I took over a central office, Bob, after Bob retired, he stayed on for a couple of weeks to show me all of the ropes, including how to change garbage bags correctly. And if I got it wrong, he made me do it again. Sort of like, how a dad teaches a son how to catch a baseball, you know, or how to ride a bike, you know. He the blue and gold, and I know this is a fashion FUBAR. I'm wearing a blue and gold tie with a black suit because Bob was an avid Notre Dame fan, you know, and I sort of was too, and you know, I'd wear a blue and gold shirt, and he said, "Oh, that's a nice shirt," you know. He says if you ever grow out of it, you know, let me know, and you can pass it on to me, you know. And so what I did, you know, is I went out and I bought him one that fit him, you know, and but he'd ask me, you know, how was the game, and did you watch the game, and oh, that offensive line is doing terrible, and this, that, and the other. And, you know, we had a lot of great sports talks. But along those same lines, you know, he'd ask me, how are my grandsons doing? He would say, how are his grandsons doing? Referring to my grandsons, you know, because Bob was just such a great family man, and he cared about, you know, my family as well. He actually married my son and his wife, Alexis. And I know he's married to quite a few other people in this room. If Bob married you, he's an unofficial officiant, you know, marriage marrier, you know, officiant, you know. And so if he married you guys, raise your hand. Let's see how many people in the room. Look at that. How many people Bob have married? Amazing, amazing. If he was around, and if I was around back then, he probably would have married me too. You know? One other thing that Bob liked was to eat, you know. And if I was going somewhere to speak or where he was double booked and he says, I need you to go speak out in Bakersfield for me, you know. And he said, but you could stop off the 58 on your way out there. There's this restaurant, you know, serves great, you know, this and that and the other. And I'd be like, Bob, I don't want to drive up to Bakersfield, you know. But I'd go, of course, you know, and stop at that restaurant, you know. Make sure you get the potatoes with gravy, you know, and say, you know. He ended his talks with, if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. And they're talking about steps 8 and 9. And he'd go on and say, stay amazed. Stay amazed. And I will continue to do that, not only in his honor, but to continue his legacy, you know, both at central office and in the fellowship. Yeah, I will stay amazed. Thank you. I was actually supposed to say thank you and God bless you all.
Moon River, wider than the mile. I'm crossing you in style someday. Oh, dream maker, you heart breaker, wherever you are going, I'm going your way. Two drifters off to see the world. There's such a lot of world to see. We're after the same rainbows waiting round the bend. My huckleberry friend, Moon River, and me. I like the dark and I think to myself, of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, singing, how do you do? They really say, I love you. I hear babies cry and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than we'll know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like a lemon drops high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. The dreams that you dare to, why, oh, why can't
How many of you were surprised he had a chin? I was shocked at that. Charming, fun, special, big-hearted. The best. Caring, loving, one in a million. Funny, sweet, larger than life, supportive, and a great storyteller. These are so many of the words, and I've heard more that people have described my dad to me. Hi, I am Beth Seeley, also known as Elizabeth Ann Fishface. And probably more dear to me, his favorite daughter. I had planned on doing a reading, and I looked through Bible passages, I looked through poems. I just couldn't find anything that really spoke to me, that really conveyed the joy that was my dad. So I did steal one, though. It did say, you can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he has lived. Well, expect me to do both. My dad was both funny and fun, always had a smile and a song, real or made up. Many of you long-timers may recall a certain, oh Lord, it's hard to be humble. Oh my gosh, my girlfriend Rosie and I were camping, and we were far from our campsite, talking with some people, and there he is singing, as you would have thought we were next door, how loud it was. And we were like, what is that? But singing brought him joy, and I really feel like it was contagious to those around him. I really cannot count the amount of people who have told me that caroling with our family is a cherished Christmas memory. And I was about to say, I bet a lot of you who caroled with us or who did the VA could say the exact same thing. Our parents were really welcoming our house to all of our friends. Our house was always really full. An old friend who I really have not spoke to in decades heard about my dad and sent me a really sweet message and said the normal condolences, and it was very touching. But what she said was, I actually have to look down. It was she always appreciated my parents and how they took in all the strays, and they showed her how parents should be, loving and supportive of their kids. And she didn't come from that kind of family. So she said to me that being at that time with my parents made her not only a better person, but a better parent today. And I was really overwhelmed by that and really touched. My parents were really good role models, warts and all. They were pretty great. So many of you are probably a little sad, upset that you didn't get to see him that one more time or say that last goodbye. And I understand that. As you're going to hear, probably he was really sick, but he kept getting better. We would think, okay, I mean, even his grandkids weren't allowed to come in to see him. But he kept proving everybody wrong, and he got better. And he had been moved to a rehab, and we thought he was good. It was pure luck that I arrived in town on February 15th, and I saw my dad 2 times. Our last visit was fantastic. I will keep the look on his face when I walked in my heart forever. I didn't know that was the last time I'd see him. It was our last goodbye, but it was perfect because it was perfectly normal. We hugged, we laughed, we chatted. He enjoyed a very sweet strawberry treat. Oh my gosh, you could see how his vision was on that one. When we left, I said goodbye, I'll see you tomorrow. I kissed him, told each other we loved each other. He always tells me he's proud of me. He's always tells me how impressed he is with our kids, how I married so well. So our last goodbye was perfect because it was perfectly normal. Recently I've had a lot of friends deal with loss. And some were quite surprising, and some they knew it was their last goodbye. And I've got to say, it's never easy. It feels the same, I think. So I would say, my dad would say, live every day as it was the last time you're with that person you love. Because I know he did, and I think we should all be like Bob. A long time ago, I was at a gratitude meeting on a Thursday night men's stag meeting. And I was invited. I wasn't at it. There was others. Well, you never know. It may have been a slow period. But I heard so many guys at that meeting say what they were grateful for was my dad. And it was overwhelming, and it was beautiful. There were so many other occasions that these things were said. So you've told him over and over again how you feel about him, how much you love him, how much you appreciate him. And he was grateful for all of you. He felt the love daily. So maybe your last goodbye was, I'll call you right back. And Marjorie, you might feel like that was it. Maybe he even yelled at you the last time you talked, but he probably thought it was something you needed to hear, and he said it with love. Perhaps it was a sweet smile or a laugh, or I'll see you soon. More likely it was an I love you or God love you. Whatever your last goodbye was, just know that you meant something to him. He was grateful for you, and he loved you too. I guess what I'm really trying to say is that there were no words, no regrets, no words unspoken. And I feel like it's a pretty beautiful way to live. And I think if you remember anything about my dad, is just make sure that that's how you live. A long time ago in college, or maybe high school, I don't know, but I read a poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it always struck me as him even way back then. And it's called What is Success? And what is success? To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and to endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a little bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or redeemed social condition. To know that even one life has breathed easier because you have lived, to this you have succeeded. Well, Daddy, you are the epitome of success. And I will love you always. And that should be it, but I draw the short straw. My daughter Megan's going to come up and help me because when we thought my mom would be here, as many of you know, she doesn't have much of a voice anymore. But on their 50th, she did write her vows. I helped her. She could still read. She could communicate better. And we had a nice conversation, and I'm going to shorten her vows slightly, but she did read them to my dad at their 50th anniversary, which was 13 and a half years ago. That's a long time. How beautiful. But because everyone have bets on how long I can get through this, we've had my daughter Megan is here to help, and then she's going to say something too. So this is from Ellen. When I was talking with Beth about our life together, I was filled with wonder. I was 22 when I moved into an apartment with a cute, single, funny guy across the hall. I knew that I wanted to go back to Europe, and I could tell that you were just a fun guy who enjoyed being single. So as all good plans go, we fell in love and were married a year later. Life's up and downs have brought us closer. The births of our children were amazing. We moved around a lot. We made good friends everywhere we lived and had good times in each town. Northridge became home. We were hooked on LA. As the kids grew, life became very busy. We had good times and some tough times. And again, wonder came to play. I fell in love with a new, sober Bob. A new life began together. Scary at times, but together we are strong. More good times and a new busy life, exciting life began. When I had my stroke, at that time, when I woke up, I didn't know the faces of my family. However, I knew when I saw your face, a face I didn't know, I felt love. The stroke couldn't take that from us. Our roles in our relationship have changed, but one constant in all these years is the deep love that I feel for you. Think I can do it? Okay.
You got it.
So here are my vows to you. You are the one that I want to laugh with, the one whose hand I want to hold while watching a beautiful sunset, the one I will always want to sing with, and the one I love completely. And I will always love being your wife. So that was from my mom.
I'm shocked she went through that, to be completely honest with you. Hello, everyone, here and on the live stream. My name is Megan Seeley, and I'm one of the granddaughters of Bob Fisher. To be completely honest with you all, I never thought I'd be having to write this, simply because I always thought my grandpa would live forever. He was one of those people that you always thought was invincible and would never have to grow old. My grandfather was one of my favorite people in the world, and that opinion is never going to change. He was truly one of a kind. He had this ability that all of you know to make you feel like the most important person in the world just by having one conversation with him. Just about every conversation I had had with him, he had made me feel like the luckiest and most amazing granddaughter in the world. And I always and forever will be so grateful to have had a grandfather who truly cherished us grandchildren till the very end. The thing with my grandpa is he would always remind you how amazing you are and how much he truly loved you. You always knew where you stood with him, and that was always love, which is something I think we should all take into account in our own lives. Something everyone knew about him was his ability to always sing. He would sing songs he knew, he would sing songs other people knew, but my favorite one, he would make up songs specifically for you. I got my nickname from him because he simply would always sing it. He would sing me a song made just for me at least 3 times a day when I would see him. With the singing came one of my most cherished traditions of all was Christmas Eve caroling. He would always wear his amazing top hat, and he would be in charge of each song and which house we would sing for. But there were points if the houses provided cookies and hot chocolate. The thing with my grandpa, though, is over time, he definitely forgot most of the lyrics to these Christmas songs, even though they're right in front of his face the whole time. All of us would have to go along with whatever lyrics he may have had in store for us, because his voice was so powerful you can only really hear his. We slowly learned that his lyrics were always the right lyrics, even if they weren't actually right. My family lives in Northern California, so we would always try our best to visit as much as possible. And with that came other traditions with my brother, grandpa, and I. It eventually became a tradition to always bring a $2 bill, and if you did, he would give you another, and so on and so forth. My brother and I would always be kicking ourselves if we had forgotten one trip or another, and sometimes my grandpa would be nice enough to give us a $2 bill, even if we had forgotten. Something my grandfather and I always had in common was oddly enough our love for peanut butter. There were so many instances where we would be arguing about who gets the Reese's that were at the house, and a lot of the time he'd be nice enough to give it to me. I would always make us some sort of peanut butter treat that he would fall in love with each time. Man, did he love those treats. He would always get so excited if I made him one or would split my Reese's with him. That is something I always loved about him, his ability to always get so excited over the littlest of things. Something I'm always going to miss about him are those big bear hugs and that amazing laugh of his. He impacted my life in so many different ways, and I will forever thank him for that. We will all continue to sing Zippity Doo Dah in your honor, Grandpa. I promise I'll give you a $2 bill next time I see you. Your Maggie misses you and loves you very much, and I cannot wait to see you again. Thank you.
How many Bob Fisher babies are here? Right on, right on. You guys are the lucky guys that have had the opportunity to have his love, his direction, as you've already heard so many times today from the family and the people that are up here. You get to carry on that message and that glow from on and on and on. That's how Bob would love it. You know, what he had for you, he gave to you, and it's your job to carry that message on. There's one other thing I would like to do that I can't. I know Bob Fisher is, there's some kind of a song he sang all the time. I, me, however you want to sing it, go ahead. Da, 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 da. Me, I. I will, there's things about him, there's other people that have passed that always had something, and that always, when I hear Bob Fisher, I think of that song. And he was, that was the only time I think I ever heard him talk about himself. But Bob and I, Jack Lynch was our leader of our little April group. Jack Lynch got sober in April of '81, April Fool's Day. I had April 24th, and Bob was the 30th. And Bob always came, he would always, if we're standing by somebody, he'd put his arm around me and he'd go, "This is Shamu. He is substantially more sober than I, with more quality sobriety." 7 days, right? When we turned 30, all of us, none of us wanted to do that party thing or get the presents. It's about recovery in life and family and everything. Unbeknownst to us, between the people in central office and the people in the program, they threw a 30-year party for all of us. And what was said earlier, so many of you've already said everything that could be put out there for all of us. I'm sitting back there. I feel like I just did a line, you know. It's been a long time, but I'm so wound up about him and what he has given us, and I can't give any more. David, you know, I think of how many times I went into Bob's office or anybody that went in. He always stopped. You know, he was always there. He always gave. Only problem I didn't understand is his desk and how he coordinated things. You know, he looked through that desk of stuff, and I think it was priorities. You know, he had to get these things up besides talking to people. There was something else that was so very important that I can't remember, but I love you guys. Thanks for allowing me to be here.
Hi, I'm Ray. I am Bob Fisher's son-in-law. It's a title I hold to the highest esteem, like husband and dad. Quite a few times, Bob would say to me that I was his favorite son-in-law. That turned out to be very convenient. When I sat down and tried to figure out what I wanted to write, what I wanted to say, by the way, Bobby, Carrie, I don't know how you guys do that for a living. My writing is contained to a 3x5 card. But I kept on everything I wrote down was interactions I had with Bob. My time with Bob, which I thought would be a great title. All of us here could write something about my time with Bob. I'll write an essay, and I'm pretty sure none of them would be boring. When I first met the Fisher family years ago, we walked through the front door, and Bob muted the football game he was watching. Now, he didn't turn it off because I wasn't quite turned off the football game material yet. But I thought it was respectful that he muted it and he could give me the full attention. So he came over, gave me a nice hug. It wasn't too hard, it wasn't too soft. You could feel the comfort there. I realized he was welcoming me into the family. I'll always remember Christmas Day, 1999. We were down in Northridge, and I got up early and I cornered him in the kitchen. Luckily, he was the only one there, and he was making a mug of coffee. So little did he know I had a ring in my pocket, and I wanted to get his permission to propose to Beth. So after I asked him, he didn't say anything. But he had a big smile on his face, and in 2 steps he was across the kitchen, and he gave me the biggest hug. He even cracked a rib. So I was so relieved, I figured that his non-verbal actions were him saying yes, he approved. And so I gave him a hug back. And then I lifted him off the floor, which that did not happen. My dad passed away when I was very young. And I unfortunately don't have a lot of memories of it. But what I found over the past 20 plus years is that Bob Fisher stopped being my father-in-law, and he became my dad. We would have a lot of conversations, just he and I cherished all of them. We would talk about everything, current events, everyday life, a lot about sports. He was a big Dodger fan, and I was a big Giant fan, so I know. Yep. But somehow we made it work. I'm going to really miss those conversations. The other day at work, one of the guys I had to work with, a nice guy, but he can be a little obnoxious, and he was complaining about how getting old sucked. And I agreed with him, just hoping that he was going to go away. And but now looking out at all the people here and on the YouTube channel or whatever you guys, young kids do, I realize that getting old gives you more chances to make more friends. And I always thought my younger brother had more friends than anybody ever knew, but not even he could come close to the friends that Bob has. One of the analogies I'd come up with Bob Fisher was that, and he may like it, he probably would have smiled if I told it to him a long time ago, but he was like comfort food. You know, I felt good whenever I spent time with him, and I felt as though I was a better person after we left. The card here that we have, I don't know if anybody has these, but you know, it says February 8th, 1935 - February 15th, 2023. That dash in the middle was his life, and it may be a small symbol, but it was far from that. He was an extraordinary man, lived an extraordinary life. He touched all of us, and he only wanted the best for us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Larry Myatt, and I'm a very grateful alcoholic. I truly am grateful to God and AA for my life and my sobriety today. What an honor to know Bob Fisher. You know, and look at the amount of people in here. And this is probably only a portion of what he touched, who he touched. I can't say enough about Bob Fisher. And I go to a 6 a.m. meeting every morning, and I share a lot of what Bob Fisher taught me. And Ellen was the co-chairman of the Al-Anons in 1988. And to sit with Bob at the breakfast and the dinners at the convention and watch how he treated Ellen after her stroke was amazing. You know, he never complained. He just loved her. And I could see it in his eyes and in his face, you know. And I have no complaints today because of that. You know, I woke up this morning. I didn't come to. I didn't come out of the bushes. I didn't come out of a cardboard box. And I didn't come out of somebody's car. You know, I woke up today and I truly am grateful. You know, not only am I grateful for my life and my sobriety today, but I'm grateful for all you people. You know, in all your are getting together and things, meetings. You know, when I walked into this area, nobody ran away. Nobody went and hid or went like this, said, he can't see me. What a miracle that is, you know. And each and every one of you in your own way touched me, you know. Joe, I was part of Chris's motor pool, you know. And I drove him around in my brother's little Lotus Europa, and the roof was about that high. And to see him get in there and out of there, it was funny. And, you know, to be a part of the USR group, I guess I'm the last living member of it, because Bob used to point that out. And, you know, he used to come out once in a while to the USR group. They'd come out to my house in Desert Hot Springs, and we'd play golf for 3 days, go to meetings, play Texas dominoes, and sing and laugh. We just had a ball. And, you know, I still learning. I don't care how much time you have, whether it be just a few days or a few years. You know, here you took a fallen down, puking drunk, and you turned them into a functioning human being, you know. And there's a lot of you that you may not admit it, but you probably are one of us. And being part of us, sometimes I can't find the words. I'm getting old. And I was talking to somebody earlier. I says, I got little goals in life. And my next goal is to be able to live till May so I can celebrate an 81-year birthday. You know, that's a long time. My sobriety date is November 30th, 1977. And who'd have thought that I could live I was going to live this long to know a lot of you people. You know, when I got here, I had no friends at all. And like I said today, I can walk into a room and nobody would hide. And Bob Fisher showed me ways. We cooked breakfast together at San Fernando on Sunday mornings for a long time. You know, I don't care how much time you have, we can all still learn. You know, and I've learned a lot today. So keep coming back, folks, because I still need you too. Thank you.
Hello, I am Dan, And one of Bob's sons, one of his 4 sons, and I don't like them right now because they've said everything that I want to say. We'll deal with that later. But, you know, I loved my father. Obviously, I loved my father. But I mean, I really liked him. You know, he was just a great human being in every way. And I was blessed. Glasses time. So I can't tell you how many people I have run into over the course of the last 40 years where I have mentioned my dad, his last name or my name, and they've said, "Hey, I know a Bob Fisher." They're everywhere. It's crazy, right? It's just absurd. You know, Beth has this great story of her last interaction with my dad, and you know, that's perfect. And I am glad you came out when you did. And because we just didn't know what was going to happen. And we were, of course, hoping for the best. But, you know, my father would never let you leave a room without saying he loved you. Because he used to tell us, you never know, it could be the last time. Now, I had a last word experience with my dad also. And it wasn't, I love you. So I was in the hospital visiting him, and he was sleeping. So I was just sitting there for a while. All of a sudden, he popped open his eyes. And he goes, "Danny, get over here." I went over, he grabbed my hand, he said, "Get me up." And I said, "Dad, I can't get you up. We got doctors and nurses. They're taking care of it. I can't do it." He goes, "Get me up and get me out of here." I had to tell him again, "Dad, I can't do this." And he grabbed my hand a little bit tighter, looked me right in the eye, winked, and said, "Coward." He fell asleep. I haven't spoken to him ever again. So I got that. Anyway, he loved all of us, obviously, and he had so much love to give, and he did. And he just gave so much in his life, and he took so very little. You know, he was such an impressive man. And I'm talking about from when I was 18 on. And he was fun when we were young. He just had about 5 really bad years. But, you know, as I'm sure is very common. And, but he loved his grandkids so much. You know, when Sarah came on the scene, my parents became grandparents, and they, you remember the first Christmas? Everybody got you everything you could possibly want. It was absurd, you know? Anyway, they called him Popo, and it's an odd name for a grandfather, but they did it. And the story behind Popo is fantastic, that one of his grandchildren, Bradford, when he was just learning to speak, you know, he had mom, he had dad, he had Nana, he had names, he had Sarah, he understood all this, but for whatever reason, he called Grandpa Popo. And Popo was just, that's what he said, and my dad was okay with it. This kid was going to call me Popo for a while until he figured it out. 3-4 months later, my dad's sitting with Bradford with his picture book, like a little kid's picture book, and it's animals. Bradford goes to the first page, points to the animal and says, you know, elephant. And, you know, he and my dad look at each other, and my dad's like, yeah. Flips the next page. Giraffe. Yes. Next page, zebra. Yes. Next page, he opens up, he points to the picture, looks stunned, stares at him, and says, Popo. It was a hippopotamus. Anyway, they laughed and laughed and laughed about it. My dad liked it. He liked it. His grandkid called him hippopotamus. And the funny thing was, everybody adopted it. So they just ran around calling him the hippopotamus. Let me see. What else do I have here that's not crossed out? Okay, so the food thing. Let's get that out of the way on my part. He was a gracious man, and not only did he love food, but if you brought him food, you guys have in this room, he was so grateful. And over the top grateful. And I swear to you, if I made him a mud sandwich, he would eat the entire thing. And then he would tell me and rave about how it was the best mud sandwich he's ever had in his entire life. Because he was a little full of crap, you know? He was my father. He was my friend. He was my confidant. He was my inspiration. And somehow he never gave advice, which was amazing. I could walk in there and go, Dad, I need your advice on something. And all he did was figure out how to encourage me to stay on the path I was on. And I was right. And it's amazing for someone who you ask for their help repeatedly, he doesn't give you an answer. He just gave you the tools to utilize all of your skills. And I respect that. I truly admired him. And, just a really good man. And, in honor of my mom, my dad cherished life, everything about it, ate it all up, literally. But there was nothing in this world more than he cherished than my mom. And that's amazing. She took care of him until she was 62 years old. She did everything. She paid the bills. She made sure he could eat. Sure, he made breakfast every now and then. But she took care of him. She told him what clothes to wear. If you noticed, after she had her stroke, his wardrobe. So, write down. But when she did have her stroke, he immediately switched roles and dedicated the rest of his life to taking care of her. And that's a beautiful thing. Thank you.
Lou again. So I only have like 2 more hours of stuff. Okay. I don't. Now I'm almost sort of regretting this, but we're going to sing a Christmas Carol for my dad. A couple things. One, my dad was a great singer. He really was. Some people's voices, they're great singers. There are probably some great singers here. And sometimes you hear a great singer and you just want to be quiet and listen to him. The way my dad was a great singer was, he had this beautiful voice, but he made you want to join in and sing with him. And so my whole life, really, honestly, my family has gone Christmas caroling on Christmas Eve. It's extraordinary. and it might have even preceded me, I think. And then also I know that for many years, my dad led carolers at the veterans facility with many of the people in the program. And he always, he had that. You guys saw the top hat in the pictures. It's a real thing, It was purely right out of Dickens. And they, but so we're going to. Oh, and the other thing too is that, like, it's totally tragic. None of his kids can really sing. We could vaguely, aspirationally carry a tune. So this is going to be. We'll lead it, but it's going to be rough. So come on, you guys. As many of you want to come up. Any. So I think there's lyrics to, there's lyrics on your table. The song is, he had his big song book. We still have them with all these Christmas carols in them. This was one of his absolute favorites. Unfortunately, it's a teeny bit difficult to sing. And there was this line in it. I think we'll just do the first verse. But I think his favorite line is in the second verse, and it's repeat the sounding joy. And, he used to boom it, and that was my dad. All
We
right.
gotta do this, Bob. We gotta do it right.
Okay. Yeah. No. I can't take the top hat. We'll put the top hat right here. It feels... earned it. All right. You want me to wear the top? All right. So, all right. Are you guys ready? All right. Okay, we'll try this, and then we'll end on the first voice, the first verse. All right. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. Thank you guys so much. Oh, yeah. So... all right, great. So this ends the structured portion of the thing. Everybody grab some food, and as we eat, it'll be opportunity for anybody to share. And thank you. And again, thank you all for being here, and once again, we're just so blown away just how much love you all shared for my dad. Thank you.
I didn't mean to step on his applause. Also, if you haven't signed the guest book, I think they're over there. Please take the bookmarks with you guys and the prayer cards. All right. Thanks very much.
Okay, so there are sandwiches and chips in the back. Please help yourself. Get in line, I guess, and enjoy.